It must have been about 20 years ago. My dad was a high-ranking military officer, and our whole family was fortunate enough to live in a military complex provided by the government. I was a high school senior, studying for the college entrance exam. "Hey, turn off the TV!" I shouted. My younger sister, however, was watching TV and laughing loudly, making it hard for me to concentrate. Frustrated, I looked for a quiet place to study and decided to go to the library located within our building. This library was provided for military personnel to use. "Excuse me," I said to the security guard. "My dad is one of the military officers living in this building. Is it okay if I use the library?" The security guard looked surprised and said, "No one ever goes there." It seemed like I was the first one to use the library in a long time. At the time, I had no suspicions. I was just happy that no one would be there and thought I could have the whole space to myself. He found the key and handed it to me, advising me not to stay too late. I took the key and headed to the library. Unlocking the door, I found the library completely empty. Even though it was daytime, it was dark and felt a bit eerie. I settled in the middle aisle, thinking it was the perfect spot to study quietly by myself. Had it been about 2 hours since I started studying, I was focused on my studies when I heard the opening of the door. Moments later, I heard the sound of someone pulling out a chair and sitting down at the desk directly opposite of mine. Annoyed by the intrusion, I couldn't help but wonder why, out of all these empty seats available, whoever it was decided to sit right in front of me. But then I started hearing a strange noise, the rhythmic pattern of thud, tap, thud, tap. It was even more annoying because it echoed throughout the otherwise quiet library. I wrote "Please be quiet" on a small piece of paper and slowly slid it through the gap under the partition that separates each cubicle. There was no response at first from the other side, but then when the paper note was halfway in, it got quickly pulled away. Whoever was sitting on the opposite side must have seen the note and taken it. Expecting peace to follow, I resumed my studies. But shortly after, the noise started again. Thud, tap, thud, tap. I got really annoyed and went around to complain. But when I got to the other side, all I saw was the note I had written, lying in the middle of the desk. If no one is here, then who took my note? Terrified, I screamed and ran all the way home. The next day, I was worried about the stuff I had left at the library. I decided to go back to the library to get my things, but I was too scared to go by myself, so I asked my younger sister to go with me. Her response was no, which was expected as she doesn't like to read. Well, I went there yesterday and heard some strange noises. My sister looked confused. Yeah, it felt like someone else was there, even though I was alone. "So, are you coming?" She said okay, but only after she made fun of me by calling me a scaredy cat. We both headed to the library. I sat in the same seat as yesterday, and she sat one seat over. Fortunately, having my sister with me made it less scary than yesterday. I was concentrating for a while when my sister told me to be quiet. I haven't done anything. She insisted that I had been making noises for a while. What noises have I been making? Then we both heard the thudding and tapping noise again from the seat across from me. My sister and I tensed up and looked at each other. Then my sister went around towards the direction of the noise. I cautiously got up and followed her. "What? It's just a cassette player. The noise I heard yesterday must have been from this." A small cassette player was placed in the middle of the desk, making a clicking noise as the tape reached its end and kept spinning. The sigh of relief only lasted until the realization hit. But that cassette player? Who turned it on? We screamed and ran out of the library. The next day, I told my friends about everything that had happened the day before. "Hey, listen, I went to the library with my younger sister yesterday, and we were the only ones there when we heard a sudden thud." I described the incident. One friend chimed in,
Don't you know that the library is notorious for the thud ghost?
Another friend, overhearing our conversation, scoffed,
Ghosts? Seriously? Don't be ridiculous.
"I'm not joking. I heard it clearly with my own ears." "Why don't you check it out for yourself then, if you don't believe me?" I challenged. He then confidently declared he would go and prove there were no ghosts. But he attached a condition. If he spent the entire night without any encounters, he wanted $20 as a bet. "If you manage to stay until tomorrow morning, I'll gladly give you $20, I offered as a deal. He was pleased, seeing it as an easy way to make $20. We rendezvoused in front of the library at 10 p.m. We entered the library together. I grabbed my belongings I had left the day before, while my friend unpacked his bag, packed as if he were going on a camping trip. I was slightly worried. "Hey, I'll give you the key. If anything happens, just run. Send me a text," I said to my friend. He said not to worry, as he began to immerse himself in the stack of comic books he had brought to read overnight. Leaving my oblivious friend behind, I went home. I finally relaxed, lying down comfortably, and continued with the reading for my exam. Occasionally, I wondered how my friend, who was alone in the library, was doing, so I sent some text messages to him. One of the messages came back, reading mockingly, "Thanks for the $20, as if he had already won the bet. I replied with a load of colorful words, just for good measure. However, I then had already fallen asleep, completely forgetting that my friend was alone in the library. I stirred awake, and it was still dark outside. As I reached for my phone to check the time, then I had to rush to the library. There were several missed calls and dozens of text messages from my friend. It was clear that something had happened. Upon arrival, I found my friend huddled in a corner, consumed by fear. "Hey, it's me. Snap out of it." What came out of my friend's mouth after he regained his composure was too shocking. On that night, he was leisurely enjoying himself after I had gone home, reading comic books and listening to music. After a while of being alone, got bored and began texting me with mocking tone. Why isn't he showing up? But then a message showed up on his phone. "I'm on my way now. I'm on my way now." Someone was sending multiple of the same messages. It gave him chills and felt like he shouldn't stay there, so he tried to leave, but just as he was about to, someone grabbed his head. He then jolted awake. He had briefly fallen asleep. It was just a dream. He brushed it off, thinking it was because of the ghost stories he heard earlier. With a sigh of relief, he got up to go to the bathroom. He tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. My friend, thinking it was my prank, kept calling me to no avail. Getting frustrated, he started bombarding me with texts from then on. Then suddenly, he heard the exact same noise he heard in his dream earlier, that distinct thudding. Then figure in military uniform emerges from darkness. It was the sound of a soldier's footsteps. Another friend who was listening seriously beside me began to explain the reason for the soldier making that sound. It turned out the figure my friend saw was a retired soldier who used to live here. One day, he hung himself using a shoelace from one of his military boots, leaving one foot in a boot and the other bare. Each foot made different noises as he walked, with one foot hitting the floor in a boot and the other bare. In fact, the library was originally the room where the deceased soldier lived, but it was converted into a library after his death. The thudding, followed by tapping noise, lingering in my ears, remains a memorable experience I can't forget.